Well, welcome to The World Today. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Here's what's coming up within the half hour. Ceremonies continue for the funeral of Iran's late supreme leader, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. At least 25 people killed in Sri Lanka prison riots. Plus, torrential rain sends floodwaters through the Turkish capital. Let's begin The World Today. And thanks for joining us on the program. It's another day in the funeral for Iran's slain religious leader, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who was killed on the first day of the war with the US and Israel. All across Iran over the weekend, state TV showed the ceremonies with many thousands of mourners gathered to watch Khamenei's flag-draped coffin being transported by a lorry along a 10-kilometer route that passed through the capital. 3 of Khamenei's sons prayed beside his coffin there on Sunday. But Mojtaba, the son who succeeded him as supreme leader, did not make an appearance. A massive crowd filled the Grand Mosala and its surrounding areas in Tehran as memorial ceremonies began for the late Iranian supreme leader Ali Khamenei. The prayer complex was packed to capacity, with crowds spilling into nearby streets and filling major roads leading to the venue. Funeral prayers held in 3 segments, the first dedicated to the late supreme leader, while the second included the funerals of Boshra Khamenei, the eldest daughter of the Ayatollah, and Mesbah al-Hoda Bagheri and Zara Haddad Adel, members of the Iranian inner political circle who were killed alongside the supreme leader in a joint US-Israeli airstrike. The ceremonies are scheduled to continue through July 9th in both Iran and Iraq. Ali Khamenei's other sons, Mustafa, Masood, and Messam, prayed over his casket at the Imam Khomeini Mosala Grand Mosque, alongside other relatives whose loved ones were also killed in the attack. Only one face was missing beside the coffin, that of Mojtaba, who was named Iran's current supreme leader this year. Mojtaba has not appeared in public since his appointment, with his official remarks so far delivered through recorded statements read by a news anchor on state television. Crowds remained at the Grand Mosala into the night as they bid the Ali Khamenei goodbye. Some held portraits of him and said they wished to sacrifice their life for him. The funeral procession is planned for July 6th, before ceremonies at the holy city of Qom on July 7th. Iran says official delegations and religious figures from more than 90 countries are due to take part, including Pakistan's Prime Minister and senior representatives from Russia, China, India, and Iraq. Let's bring in security analyst and author Saul Satka. He is in Tel Aviv. Saul, thank you for making it on the program today. And I'm just wondering what the sentiment is in Israel, as people watch this funeral, which is said to be, which Iran has described as funeral of the century, going on TV. I know there can be no mourning for him in Israel.
Well, absolutely, there's no mourning for him in Israel. And while there is mourning for him in Iran, you have to understand that the majority of the people in Iran hate him as much as the people in Israel, if not more. He destroyed their lives, the people of Iran, as much as he damaged the Israelis, in fact, much more. It was the Israeli government that took the decision to eliminate Khamenei. It was an Israeli bomb that killed him. And there is a certain amount of pride in Israel that this man who spent 50 years saying death to Israel was brought death by Israel. And that really should be the fate of anyone that calls for your death, is to face death at your hands. So there's a tremendous sense of satisfaction here, I would say.
And just by a way of refreshing our memories, you already talked about, how he won a death, for Israel. We see the crowds, the millions, the thousands of people, hundreds of people, gathered across the capital Tehran. His funeral is taken across a few number of days over the weekend, also today and tomorrow. How do you describe, the way the Iranians actually, perceived him? We know he was a religious leader, but he also had great influence over the government of Iran. How do you explain these crowds and, what they believed of him?
Well, certainly the Iranian population numbers some 92 million people, and it perhaps might be true that 10 to 15% of those people supported what he did and are very much regime diehards, with perhaps 10% of the population being directly employed by the regime or dependent on people that are. So you certainly have a hardcore that supports him, and that in itself can form huge crowds. However, we know from public opinion surveys that the majority of people within Iran would like to see the end of the regime, and the difficulty that exists there is that the regime are the only people with significant amounts of weapons within the country. So it's very hard to dislodge them as it stands.
So the new Ayatollah is not in Tehran. He's not there at his father's funeral. No one knows where exactly he is. He's not been seen since he was named Ayatollah. What do the Israelis make of this fact, the fact that he's in hiding right now? Some have said that, he's injured, which is the reason why he's not been seen. Others say it's because he has a target on his back by the U.S. government. If he does make an appearance anywhere, he would be a dead man.
Yes, well, certainly this could be true, but the longer this continues, with no audio recording, no video recording, no still photographs even, it does seem more and more like the likelihood is that he was killed on the same day as his father, as was widely believed at the time and was implied by both American and Israeli sources. Of course, there's no evidence of this. However, the longer this continues, the more it does seem likely. If you recall, even Osama bin Laden managed to stay in hiding for more than 10 years, and he still regularly managed to release video recordings. Of course, they were very careful about the paper trail and how it was released to the public via multiple levels of messengers, and always ensuring there were no hints in the background about where they might be. That is certainly something that the Iranian regime could do, and it does seem likely that something they would do if he was actually alive. It's that other people are suggesting that he's actually in a coma or that he has a major facial disfigurement that they don't want people to know about. These are possibilities, but more than likely, there are other signs as well. Various open source investigators have noted the fact that various websites associated previously with the Supreme Leader have been taken over by other people within the IRGC, to imply that actually it is various people within the IRGC who are jostling for power and are keeping him there as essentially a puppet behind the scenes.
And what could happen, if he eventually is found to be non-existent? Perhaps if he did eventually die, in that attack with his father and his other relatives. Um, Iran has made the supreme leader, their focal point, for the governments. That's probably where they get, the direction for the government. What sort of direction then? Who now then controls that? In the absence of an Ayatollah for Iranians.
Well, it's very mysterious because, as you mentioned correctly, the Ayatollah isn't just the leader of the nation, he's also the head of the Shia religion, in effect. And so the fact that it does seem that the IRGC have decided that it's a safer bet to have a dead or essentially hidden leader that no one will see and no one will hear from than have a leader who is alive and therefore a potential assassination threat, that does do a very strange thing to the Shia religion in general. It is extremely weird. It's not clear how long they can keep it going, but what does seem clear at some point, if he is in fact dead or effectively dead, essentially unable to function, that will eventually leak out. And when that does, one might anticipate a large breach in the faith between the people of Iran and or at least the people of Iran that still adhere to the IRGC and their theological insanity, and the actual government. So it could be that itself, the leaking of the fact that he is either dead or has been dysfunctional, and they have been pretending of this the whole time, that might lead to some kind of, let's say, dispersal, some dissolution of the final threads of authority that the IRGC have over the people.
Sol Satka, thank you again for speaking with us on The World Today. Appreciate your time with us today.
My pleasure.
Let's head to Iran now. The Air Force says a serious shortage of interceptor missiles meant none of the 23 ballistic missiles fired by Russia on Kyiv on Sunday night were shot down. At least 15 people were killed in the second large-scale Russian attack on the Ukrainian capital in a week. According to officials, 7 more people were killed in the wider Kyiv region. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has appealed for allies to take strong decisions at this week's NATO summit to provide Kyiv with air defenses. After the strikes, President Volodymyr Zelensky said the Ukrainian military had been successful in intercepting cruise missiles and drones, but not ballistic missiles. In the meantime, Russian presidential spokesperson Dmitry Peskov says the conflict in Ukraine initially started as a special military operation, but has since escalated into a real war due to Western military support for Kyiv. He made the comments during an interview with a journalist in the Kremlin on the program broadcast on Russia 1. The Kremlin speaker commented on the Russian armed forces capture of Konstantinovka, saying Konstantinovka is a very significant strategic line and represents a crucial step towards capturing such an important, I would say, joint fortified area of Kramatorsk and Slavyansk. No one should have any doubt that our military is advancing smoothly and we see concrete results. These are Peskov's words. He also says Kyiv is trying to make an illusion for its handlers and its NATO partners, for NATO countries, that it is capable of putting pressure on Russia, but those who understand the situation know that this is not the case. Again, according to Peskov. Riots at a prison in western Sri Lanka have killed 26 people, 7 of them guards, and injured more than 100 more. The 2 days of violence at Negombo prison in a coastal town north of Colombo began with clashes between 2 groups of inmates. Prisoners are alleged to have grabbed guards' guns on Sunday. 2 people were killed that day, with dozens more injured. Much later, groups of male prisoners and women from an adjoining unit climbed onto prison rooftops, demanding to be released. Fresh violence erupted earlier today when inmates tried to rush the prison gates. Security forces were deployed and multiple gunshots heard from inside the prison. The violence was reportedly triggered by a clash over an inmate informing on a drug trafficking operation inside. A total of 23 prison officers and 54 inmates are still receiving treatment. Staying in Sri Lanka, devastating fire has torn through an elderly care home in the country, claiming the lives of 13 people and injuring several more. We're looking at footage showing the care home engulfed in flames, with fire crews arriving at the scene. The aftermath reveals a gutted single-story structure with charred walls, collapsed roofs, and debris-strewn floors. Police teams are later seen inspecting the area, while volunteers carry the deceased and place them into a van. The media says the blaze started around 5:30 p.m. local time and is believed to have been caused by an electrical fault. The fire led to the complete destruction of the facility, which was housing 71 residents, far exceeding its designed capacity of 15. Reports indicate 10 residents were found dead at the scene, while another 3 succumbed to injuries after being transported to Horana Base Hospital. The victims include the elderly and individuals with special needs and mental illnesses. The youngest of them was a 17-year-old boy. 51 residents were rescued by military personnel and public officials amid the chaos, while 7 injured individuals remain hospitalized. Authorities have arrested the facility director for negligence, as the home was operating without proper registration and serious safety concerns have been raised. A magisterial inquiry has been launched into the incident. We're off in a short break now on The World Today. Still ahead, how does it do it? The humanoid robot reportedly makes history, reaching the summit of an Ecuadorian volcano. Stay with us. A little bit of the US's 250th anniversary celebration on Saturday, where President Donald Trump said the American dream is back. He was speaking to a cheery crowd which gathered during a delayed rally at the National Mall in Washington on Saturday. His speech, which finished just before midnight, touched on political themes, including the rejection of communism and the right to bear arms. Trump capped off his remarks by calling the moment only the dawn of the golden age of America, with its destiny written by God. This year, the country marks its 250th birthday with fireworks and flyovers. But celebrations across the country have been complicated by extreme weather. Celebrations in the U.S. Capitol were delayed because of a thunderstorm, which forced an evacuation of the National Mall earlier in the evening.
America is back, and we want to keep America great, and we will do so by approving the Save America Act, which means all voters must show voter ID. All voters must provide a little thing called proof of citizenship. And there will be no mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military deployment, or travel. And you won't have cheating on the elections anymore. It's very simple. I'm proud of you.
Veteran U.S. television host, inspirational speaker, news anchor, social media influencer, and author Shannon LaNier is a descendant of the third U.S. president. He's actually a sixth great-grandson of Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings, an enslaved woman who owned by the former U.S. president. He joins us now from New York. I'll talk about America's 250th. Shannon, I'm sure that there is some sense of pride in you, being literally related to American history at this moment.
Well, it's a complicated past that I have lived with because sometimes you are proud of the accomplishments of someone like Thomas Jefferson, but it is complicated because he was also a slave owner who owned over 600 people throughout his time. So it gets a little complicated, but this founding of this country is complicated, and some of the things that we're going through right now are also complicated. So I try to focus on preserving the history of this country, the true history, things that actually happened, so they aren't erased, so we can learn from our past, and also celebrate the strength of the ancestors that came before us, who gave their blood, their sweat, their tears to make America possible. Because we wouldn't have a 250th anniversary without those people who gave their lives to make this country the great place that it is.
Yes, and you did discover, some of these things, I guess, as you were growing up. Were you aware, that, you were part of this historical institution called the American presidency? Were you aware of that as you were growing up? And how did that reflect on, your childhood, your upbringing, and what you've learned about America today?
Well, I've always known that I was a descendant of Sally Hemings and Thomas Jefferson. It's one of those things we grew up with the oral history of the family. But my levels of understanding about the family has always been sort of an up and down roller coaster as I'm discovering new things about who Jefferson was as a kid, about what he did, the contradictions about his life. So it has opened my eyes to understanding the conflicts that result in one family, but also the strength that we can overcome some of those things, that we can grow, we can learn from our past. We can't pick our family, but we can decide what we do with that history and how we live our lives based on where we come from.
So what do you think that Thomas Jefferson would have said about modern day America? What do you think he'd have wanted to change?
I think I'm not a Thomas Jefferson scholar, but on some of the things that I have read about him, he would probably be shocked by the amount of taxation on its people. Also, the amount of government involvement and how people run their lives, as well as the political parties, which are different now than they were in his days. So there are a lot of things that, but he was a man of advancement. He probably liked the technology that we have at our fingertips today because he liked inventing and he liked technology and things like that. Hopefully, he would be disappointed that we are not further along than we should have been or could have been. But he's part of the problem in that too, because I wish that he would have done more to free the enslaved people when he was president, because he was the most powerful man in the country. He could have done more.
Yeah, and I'm sure that those are lessons you're teaching your kids, whom I have seen on social media. You are that dad who gives details at 11, with the Lanier
Yeah.
kids. How are you spreading and informing them about, their history as well and, what they should learn from that and how that impacts on their future?
Yeah, what's interesting is it's all connected to family, to the Jeffersons, the Hemmings, and everything that I do. Because Black families were so separated and pulled apart during times of enslavement, I make sure that I show positive images of fathers online with our over 1 million followers to make sure that they see an image of a Black dad being active and influencing in his kids' lives. That, a lot of people think, oh, deadbeat dads, this and that. Well, studies show that African American fathers are more involved in their children's lives than their counterparts. So I just like to highlight that aspect and like to do it in a humorous and fun way. So we're always doing silly shenanigans and skits online at Mr. Shannon LaNier. If you're not following, please follow. I have a large following out of Africa, so I appreciate everybody. And I got to get back soon. I haven't been there in a few years. I was
Yeah.
in Lagos and Abuja for about a month. I've also been to Cape Town, South Africa. There's still so much more to see. So, hopefully along my travels or speaking engagements, I'll be able to stop by again.
Well, hopefully you will stop by, Shannon. I'm a huge follower, a huge fan of yours. I love the
Thank
details at
you.
11. This little Lanier, this is how it always begins. Really wonderful stuff. Thank you again for joining us on the program today.
Thank you.
And as we end the world today, humanoid robot nicknamed Pemba reached the summit of Ecuador's Chimborazo volcano, becoming the first robot of its kind to climb above 6,000 meters. We're looking at this footage shared by Spanish engineer Pablo Berlanga, showing the 1.32-meter tall robot moving across steep volcanic terrain alongside an expedition team in freezing temperatures and thin air. Opemba, which weighs 35 kilograms, is a heavily modified unitary G1 model. While it walks independently on gradual inclines of up to 30 degrees, it has to be carried by team members through the route's most technical and steepest vertical sections.
I want to also a big shout out to the whole team here, to the porters that were able to help because the robot wasn't able to climb everything and had to be carried at certain sections. But it made it, it was able to climb. We'll show you videos. It's gonna be epic. And there you have it.
So he was carried half the way. Did he make the trip though? Did he? Did he? Well, it's up for debate. Thanks for watching The World Today. I'm Amarachi Ubani.